I'm about to out myself pretty hard as the uber nerd that I am, and you guys are either going to love it, or there's going to be a lot of this in the comments. My name is Joe, welcome to Quiggles Gaming, and today we're going to talk about one of the most misunderstood nerd hobbies. Let's put a little more focus on LARP. Before we get started, I stream on Twitch every Monday and Thursday, link to that in the description below. Slight disclaimer before we dive into it. Everything I'm about to say relates mostly to British LARP and the little bit of experience I've got with European LARP. Beyond that, everything is what I've been told by US friends or friends who attend more LARPs in Europe. So if I get anything wrong, I'm very sorry. So, what is LARP? LARP stands for Live Action Roleplay, sometimes referred to as LRP or Live Roleplay. And I think the most basic description I can give you is that it's kind of a mix between cosplay and Dungeons and Dragons. Kind of. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of that description though, because I don't think it really portrays exactly what LARP consists of, but then that's why I'm making this video. I think the biggest image problem that LARP has is that when people have a vague understanding of what it is, they tend to think of the end of role models. And it doesn't really look like that. It looks a lot more like this. The type of LARP portrayed in role models is called boffer LARP, and that's primarily played in the US, and as I understand it, it's mostly combat focused and not a lot about the roleplay, whereas the type of LARP that takes place in the UK tends to be pretty varied depending on which system you go to. Systems, I guess, are a little bit like video game franchises or tabletop board games. There are a bunch of different ones out there, each with their own unique world and rules, and generally something pretty unique about it that makes it stand out from the others out there. You get high fantasy LARPs where you can play as elves or dwarves or orcs or goblins, and you can be a wizard or a barbarian or pretty much anything else you've seen on TV or in the movies. Then you get low to mid fantasy events that tend to be a little bit more realistic while still having a fantasy element to the world. I guess think along the lines of Neil Gaiman's Stardust or Game of Thrones. While there are some very clear and prominent fantasy elements, the general day-to-day tends to be pretty normal for a given value. Then I've been to a bunch of horror events where you basically play through a horror movie for 48 hours and, you know, people jump out at you and you get woken up in your bed in the middle of the night by someone hammering on the window at 4 a.m. or screaming at 4 a.m. or... Anyway, you get it. You get some events where you get stalked by an infected monster through the halls of an abandoned prison. There are even games where you get to go and play as superheroes, and honestly, I mean, who hasn't wanted to do that? Who hasn't watched a Marvel movie or a DC movie and gone, I want to go and be a superhero? So for a weekend, you get to live in a world where superheroes and supervillains are a real thing. Or sometimes you get to go and play a game where you're a giant fighting robot pilot, and then you get to go into what is basically a VR experience and pilot a giant robot. What I am trying to say is that if you've ever watched a movie or a TV show and gone, that looks awesome, I want to be that guy, there is probably a LARP system out there that will allow you to do just that. Obviously, it takes a little bit of imagination on your part. There is only so much that an event organizer can physically do. If you go into it expecting a dragon from Game of Thrones or a Balrog from Lord of the Rings or some kind of battle animal, say an armoured rhino, charging across the field towards you, then you probably need to adjust your expectations a bit. Okay, that last one's actually happened, but my point stands. Going back a bit to my earlier point about boffer LARP and these huge chunks of foam that they use as weapons, these ones, you remember. LARP weapons tend to look a little bit different in the UK. They look a little bit more like this, and are made from a carbon fibre or fiberglass core, layers of foam around the outside to make it a little bit squishy, and then finished off with some painted latex to give it that more realistic look. They still don't really hurt when you get hit by them. Sometimes you might get one that catches you badly and it stings a bit, but that's very much the exception rather than the rule. But they look much cooler, and it makes everything much more immersive. And remember what I said earlier? Obviously, it takes a little bit of imagination on your part. It leaves you with a much more realistic experience. As realistic as it can be when you're dressed as a wizard. There are events all over the country, ranging anywhere from tiny 10-person events all the way up to several thousand attendees at the bigger fest LARPs. One of my absolute favourite things about LARP is that there genuinely is something for everyone, and it really is one of those hobbies where the only limit is your imagination. So that's a little more focused on LARP. I'd like to say a huge thank you to all the photographers who have let me use their images in this video. I've put links to their pages in the description down below. And also down there, you'll find some links to some events that I either know of or attend. And if you've got any questions, please let me know in the comments or drop into my Twitch chat. As a reminder, I stream every Monday and Thursday, and let me know if you've got any questions. Until then, I hope to see you on the field. Thanks for watching.
No. Yes.
Yes.